Mr. Dodge started the Dodge Motor Company in 1914, but before he did that, he provided 60% of the auto parts to Ford. He and his brother Horace were outstanding engineers. Now, together, John Dodge and Matilda had 3 children, Francis, Danny, and Anna Margaret. They were married in 1907 and purchased the property that this hall sits on. But this hall was not built by John Dodge, it was built by Alfred Wilson, Matilda's second husband. How did that happen? John Dodge and his brother Horace attended the New York Auto Show in 1920. They both contracted the Spanish flu and passed away in that year, leaving their widows as heirs to Dodge Motor Company, which was then sold for a record $146 million, the largest cash transaction of the day. Matilda takes her children to France to mourn the loss of her husband, John Dodge. When she returns, her youngest daughter, Anna Margaret, passes away from complications of the measles. So Matilda's lost her first husband, John, and her youngest child. Francis and Danny and Matilda attend the Detroit Presbyterian Church, where they meet Mr. Wilson. His father's a minister, and he's in charge of caring for orphans and widows. They fall in love, and they marry in 1925. On their honeymoon, they visit England and tour many manor homes. They make some drawings with their architect, William Capp, and come back and build this great hall, which is Meadowbrook Hall. It's 88,000 square feet. It is the 4th largest historic home in the U.S. and the best example of Tudor Revival architecture. If you think of Henry VIII, Tudor Revival. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so Alfred and Matilda built this hall. They decide after the hall is built, they will adopt 2 children, Richard and Barbara Wilson. That's why there's not a bedroom for each of them, but there is a bedroom for Francis and Danny. Okay, so now they have built the hall and opened it in November of 1929. It took 3 years, from 1926 to 1929, to build it, and $4 million. What happened in October of 1929? Stock market crashed. Bad time to open a big, gigantic hall, isn't it? So they decide, after the Depression takes its roll and things turn for the worse, they will move back into the farmhouse, the original farmhouse that John Dodge and Matilda purchased. They stay there for a while and try to conserve resources and use the hall only for fundraising purposes until World War II is over. Then they move back into the hall. They also build Sunset Terrace. That's the round circular building at the top of the hill where your president currently lives. And that is where they have their retirement years until Alfred passes in 1962. Then Matilda decides she will move back into the hall by herself until her death in 1967. But in 1957, Alfred and Matilda decide they will donate this property and $2 million to Michigan State University to create a university in Oakland County, which is your University of Oakland. So I guess we can say thank you, Alfred and Matilda. Very generous people. Anyone have questions?
So, quick question about Richard and Barbara.
Yes.
They were orphans in Chicago?
That's correct. They were adopted from the cradle in Chicago. They are not blood relatives.
Just really lucky people.
Very lucky people. And they're both still alive today.
Wow.
Can you imagine being an orphan? Well, they were babies, so they had no clue but to be adopted by two of the wealthiest people in the world and to live here.
And what I find is remarkable is that Francis and Danny, the Dodge children, were very good to Richard and Barbara and remained involved in their lives. Richard managed the Detroit racetrack, trotting horse racetrack, as well as a racetrack in Florida, and that involved Francis's help. So they did work together. Frances started Dodge Stables here, and she had 80 horses here. She was quite an accomplished equestrian, and she ended up moving to Kentucky in her later years. She died not long after Matilda died. Frances died in 1974. Okay, any questions? Yes?
What year was the place built?
Between 1926 and 1929. It opened in November of 1929. They invited 400 people and 800 people show them. It was a place to be.
And then when did they donate it? What year?
1957. And Michigan State granted Oakland University autonomy in 1962.
Granted who?
Oakland University. So it was no longer Michigan State Oakland, it was just Oakland University. And the first graduating class of Oakland University was 1963.
Oh.
Matilda was very proud of the first graduates and gave each of them a ring with a diamond in it.
Oh.
She also had dances for the students and remained involved here at Oakland until her death. She was a lifelong learner, and I didn't give you enough background on Matilda, but she grew up in Detroit. Her parents were, they ran a boarding house, and her dad ran a saloon, and they were hardworking people. She put herself through Gorseline Business College, taking accounting courses, and that's how she became a secretary for the Dodge Motor Company. She was hired by John Dodge as a secretary. And then when she started dating him, she stepped down from her position as secretary so she could officially court John Dodge. Any other questions? All right, so the tour takes approximately an hour, and I will try to be as brief as I can. If you have questions, please raise your hand and let me know. You're welcome to take pictures, just no flash photography. And please don't take pictures directly of any of the artwork. This room you're in right now is called the drawing room. It is a massive room at over 1,300 square feet, larger than my first home. If you look up at the ceiling, you'll see British mythological creatures. And if you look at the end of the ceiling, you'll see how it's curved. The weight is distributed to the sides because it is so large. This beautiful wood paneling on the back with the red curtains hides the organ pipes for the Aeolian organ. I neglected to say that John Dodge and Matilda moved into a house on Boston Boulevard when they were first married in Detroit. And then they were building another house in Grosse Pointe when he passed away. That house did not get completed. It was torn down in the 1940s. But Matilda, when she started building Meadowbrook Hall, brought some of the things from that Grosse Pointe home here. One of those things is the organ, the 2 elevators we have, and a lot of the stained glass windows, which are also visible in this room. So let's move towards the fireplace. If you look at the painting above it, it's called The Strawberry Girl by Sir Joshua Reynolds. And it said that wherever you go in the room, it looks like her eyes are following you. Not creepy at all, right? All the furniture you see in this room is a collection of what Matilda had with her first husband, John Dodge, those 2 green chairs. John and Horace Dodge used to sit in at their lunch hour in the first home. All the couches. This table was a gift to John Dodge. The piano and the dragon chair. All those things Matilda wanted to keep with her, so she never got rid of the idea of her first husband. She brought all these items and they're put in the room together. This room was meant to impress you if you're coming here for tea or luncheon. Now we also had Francis's wedding and Barbara's wedding in this room. They set up an altar here at the fireplace. Both girls had their wedding here. Francis's was in 1938. There were hundreds of people here watching, and even the staff was outside watching through the windows. The room to your left is the sun porch. It's where they have a place to sit it's like a 3-season room today. The urns that are in that room, they brought back from their world travels. Now when Frances Dodge inherited her Dodge fortune, she took her parents, Alfred and Matilda, on a 6-month world tour. And they brought back a lot of items, including some of those vases you see in the sun things. So go ahead and have a look at that room, and then we're going to go over to the organ.
Sorry.
Around this room, you will see a lot of oil paintings. You all see porcelain, like this porcelain, the blue urn there in the corner. In an English home, a manor home, the family would collect valuables, oil paintings, porcelains, throughout the lifetime, and it would be passed down from generation to generation. It's remarkable that Matilda and Alfred were able to create this hall in one generation. We have a picture of Alfred and Matilda here. You can see that Matilda is very short, 5 foot tall, and Alfred is 6 foot 2. They're standing at the front door to the hall. So as I mentioned, behind those curtains are some of the 4,600 organ pipes for this beautiful aeolian organ. If you want to walk around behind it, you can. You can see the player scrolls that could be used to play the organ automatically. And it could also be played manually. And we have someone who plays the organ during our holiday walk each year. In this case is a collection of letter openers from their world travels. And then we're going to step into the library there to your left. This is a signed Louis Comfort Tiffany lamp. It didn't hang here during the time the family lived here because Tiffany had fallen out of fashion. So this actually hung in the staff wing. But it's a beautiful piece of art, so we brought it back out here. Don't mind stepping into the library. It's $88,000. So this is the library, and this is the room where Matilda and Alfred signed over the property to Michigan State in 1957. We have a picture of John Dodge, a portrait actually, above the mantle, and in the architectural drawings you'll see Matilda did intend for his portrait to hang directly there above the mantle in this library. In the beautiful carved frieze around the perimeter of this room, you'll see philosophers' names and faces carved on this wall. We have composers on this wall. We have artists on this wall. And then there is only one author above Matilda's portrait at the north end. Anyone care to guess who that is? Mark Twain. That's correct. Matilda was a fan of Mark Twain.
Wow.
And the books that you see in this room did belong to Matilda. She had quite a collection. She was a lifelong learner and encouraged other people to better themselves through education as often as possible. This room, the little stairway, goes up to a reading room. It doesn't go anywhere, but it said that Matilda liked to keep things tidy. She didn't want magazines and newspapers laying about, so that's where those things were stored. To the left of the fireplace mantle, it's right up behind that chair that's very colorful. There is a drawer that pulls out, and it's where you can hang artwork and maps so they don't have to be folded. In the back corner, behind the lectern, is a card catalog. Matilda was meticulous about documenting all the books she had in the room. And the view out the front does show you the circle drive through those windows, as well as the wall. Behind that wall is one of our 14 gardens, the Rock Garden. We have an English walled garden and several other gardens around the property. They're all maintained by volunteers. Any questions on the library? Okay.
It's really interesting, isn't it, that, John Dodge never lived here.
No, he didn't.
Yet Matilda wanted to have his portrait on. I wonder how Alfred felt about that.
I think he must have been a very amicable person that he was okay with all that.
But of course, this was Francis's and Danny's father.
Yes, and lest you think that Alfred was just so lucky, Mr. Wilson was a lumber baron. He did have his own wealth, although it was not nearly as significant as Matilda's. Okay. So follow me. We're going upstairs to the bedroom. she went to France to mourn the loss of her husband, John Dodge, she decided to purchase these at the villa she stayed at. Ceiling with the Tudor rose and the fleur-de-lis. These dresses were worn by Matilda. This is a very nice Art Deco dress. This one is a beautiful, it's almost sapphire color. The beading on this one. And the three costumes for the children were from a parade they attended in France, and the pictures shown here in the front. Furniture with her when she moved out, gave it to her children, so not everything in her room is original, but you'll see one of her riding outfits. Again, first bedroom for guests, second bedroom for Frances. Please feel free to explore, and I'll meet you back out here, okay?
Bedroom's one of my favorites. He was a hunter, but he didn't kill the lion. If you want to walk in and see it.
Wow.
Like turn your head, it's above you.
That's really cool.
So that led to his playroom.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, isn't it nice?
Yeah.
Wow.
He had a lot of board games and boxing equipment up there.
Really?
Yeah.
You gotta remember this too. This is like in the 30s and the 40s, so that's
Wow.
like really huge for that time. Very detailed artwork.
Yeah.
Kind of bad and stuff like that.
I'm trying to switch places with you.
Trying to figure out what else I can do.
Oh, wow.
Constructed in the 1930s to do this. This actually was done by a visiting Japanese professor.
I'm sure it's extremely valuable. The artwork alone in this house is millions of dollars.
Yes. Yes, they just recently moved it. We are in the process of placing all the paintings in their original location, as well as recreating the ones that were sold off.
Imagine
But they
if you
did
had your friends come over if
of
they
the ones
wanted
that
to stay
were
overnight.
sold.
They had to
So,
come.
last year, we tried to replicate what they actually
Well,
did.
Matilda was, yeah, I'm sure, Brenda mentioned, Matilda was really worried about kids
I'm
having.
actually
She
a
was worried
ghost
kids
kid, but I
would
only
get
work in the
because there was a
summertime.
fairly
Okay.
So I don't know if
famous
you see it, but
period
it's
of time that Irma Hoffman
and
kidnapped
everything, which
her
hasn't
baby.
happened yet, but
And so all
I
of the
just,
very
I
wealthy
came in
people were worried
and I was
about
like,
that lot. So
what
rather than
thing
letting
about
her
this?
kids
What
go
the
somewhere,
difference is-
Yeah, we
They
are
bring their
moving
friends
a
here.
lot around as the, well, in preparation for Holiday Walk,
Yeah,
but also
guards,
because we're
yeah.
trying
And
to
like even if there
how
was
it
a
looked
first run
in the
movie,
1930s when
they couldn't go
Matilda
into
and Christmas
Rochester to
moved
see
in.
the movie. They
Is
would
it
have the movie brought
expected,
here.
like how
And
long
there's a
that
projection room
take?
downstairs.
It's gonna take a while
But
because
really
it takes a little bit
was
to raise the
concerned
funds.
about
We
the
need
kids.
nearly $40,000 to replicate the original artwork that has been sold, because we can't go and buy it back. Next one. Always earning money here. So on the left here is the sitting room where guests would sit to talk. It was kind of like a den for the upper floor. You're in the upper Great Hall. The furniture, the red furniture, came from the first house Matilda shared with John Dodge on Boston Boulevard. The lamp in the corner is another Tiffany original with 999 pieces of glass. And this bedroom to my left is the French guest bedroom. This was the favorite bedroom for Alfred's parents to stay in when they would come to visit. It is Louis XIV style, so a small bed, very elaborate decor. And feel free to have a look at that as well. And then we're going to go down the main.
They would sleep separate, which is
Yeah,
so
and it's
odd.
kind of
in
has
Israel.
a well collectibles from when they went traveling. Some of this is
I like it kind of.
That's the thing back in the day.
It's wild.
There are several tea set collections
Wow.
in the town. So now you've seen Francis's bedroom and Danny's bedroom. Now we're going to see where Richard and Barbara stayed with the nanny, as well as Alfred and Matilda's bedroom. So the first room to your left is the nanny's bedroom, and when Barbara and Richard no longer needed a nanny, Barbara took over that bedroom. Remember that they were adopted after the hall was built. So you can have a look in there, the nanny's bedroom or Barbara's bedroom. Barbara's picture is on the wall to the right.
It'd be nice to be served here. What?
So your professors reminded me that Danny Dodge did pass away on his honeymoon at age 21. He had gone up to Canada. He was married in August of 1938, and he and his wife went up to Canada to where he had a hunting lodge. Danny had some unexploded dynamite. He and a friend, co-worker actually, thought it wouldn't go off, but it did, and he was badly injured. So was his wife and 2 other employees. They tried to transport Danny across the lake to the hospital. During that time, he stood up on the boat, fell overboard, and drowned. It was a sad loss for Matilda. That's the 3rd person. She lost John Dodge, and then Anna Margaret, and now Danny Dodge at age 21 on his honeymoon. So a very tragic part of her life. Matilda closed off Danny's bedroom suite for a while, for about 10 years. After that time had passed, Richard asked if he could move in there, and she said, sure, no problem. Richard had originally taken the English bedroom at the other end of the hall because he said he could see who was coming and going. So in this room here is a little pantry where the nanny could warm up bottles or make sandwiches for the children, cup of tea. We have portraits in the nursery of Barbara and Richard and their school uniforms. You'll see in the nursery all the bassinet and children's toys.
Cute kids.
We have a picture here. This is Richard and Barbara with 2 of the Pekingese dogs. The family raised Pekingese dogs on the property. When Frances took her parents on that 6-month world tour, the last stop was England, and she fell in love with the Pekingese dogs there. Decided she would bring the breeder, Ruby Watson, back with her and start a Pekingese kennel here on the property. So there's 2 of the dogs. And we have Frances, Danny, and Anna Margaret in this portrait, the Dodge children. This bedroom is Alfred's. Alfred was 6'2", so his bed is a custom-made bed. And it has the 4 posters on the bed resemble the chimneys on the roof of this hall. There are 39 chimneys on the roof of this hall, 24 fireplaces.
Richard, the 2 adopted kids.
This is another guest bedroom. This is the Italian guest bedroom. And as you pass on your left, you'll see a piece there with ivory in it. It's a remarkable collection of ivory from their travels, as well as the porcelain in this cabinet. now we're gonna go into Matilda's bedroom. If you'll all just step in here, please.
We had a good time last week when we were preparing for this, watching Miley Cyrus video. Shot in the photo.
So someone just asked me how many bedrooms there are, and I answered incorrectly. There are 24 bedrooms and 26 bathrooms in this hall, and 110 rooms. So this doorway passes through to Alfred's bedroom, which you already saw, and this is Matilda's bedroom. And you might ask, why separate bedrooms? But for the wealthy at this time in history, it was important that their staff members didn't see them, person of the opposite sex, getting dressed or helping them get ready for the day. So female staff in this room, male staff in that room, separate bedrooms but a doorway in between. And this is also where the stairwell, the secret stairwell, comes up from the basement and Alfred's office. This room itself is nearly 900 square feet. It has a balcony that Matilda could look out on the property. It was a working farm during the time they lived here, so you would be looking out on horses and paddocks, sheep, and the family kept the farm running throughout the Depression and throughout the World War II rationing. They sold the extra butter and eggs they had at the corner of Adams and Butler. Down this little hallway, you're going to see Matilda's dressing room on the right, the bathroom at the end, and her closet on the left. Please feel free to explore. The bathroom has beautiful original rookwood tile.
The downhouse is what it is, the downhouse.
So this bed is raised on the platform. It's very French royalty style, if you think of Louis XIV. There's gold gilding around the cornices in this room. This is the only room with some gold gilding on it. The pictures again are the Dodge children and the Wilson children, and then this is Matilda at about the age she was when she met John Dodge. And the dresses in the back of the room, the black dress with the silver was worn by Matilda at Francis's debutante ball, and the gold dress was worn by Francis. Any questions? Big enough bedroom for you all? Maybe if you could change it to not pink, right? Not so much pink.
Brenda, I heard a story once about these doors between Alfred's bedroom and the doors that they are able that you can lock them.
I don't know that.
Okay, I've heard this. I heard another tour guide say that Matilda had the only key between the.
That could be, because she had the keys to every room in the house with the exception of Alfred's Masonic closet. That's the only closet she did not have access to because he was a Mason. Okay? All right, so now we're going to see Richard's bedroom.
Did you ever hear that story about the only key?
She could get to his side, but he couldn't get to hers.
Right.
She didn't.
She had the only key, so she could visit him.
And to your left is Richard's bedroom. Feel free to step in. Richard's picture is on the left wall. Richard was the adopted son. Richard Wilson. Yes, from her husband John Dodge, her first husband. so that Anna Margaret
About how much it
redone.
costs to keep it that way.
She died when she was born in hospital.
Must be nice.
Look at those deformed. It's kind of crazy.
If you look on the wall over here, you'll see the wedding picture of Francis who's coming down the stairwell that we came up. And this is Barbara's wedding photo, as well as a picture of Matilda driving one of the Hackney ponies around the property in her fur coat. The closet you see at the end of the hall on the right is called the wrapping closet. Matilda was adamant that she would wrap gifts for its staff members and for the children of Denby Orphanage, which she was very involved in. To the left, behind the red rope, would be the staff wing. The staff, 28 members of staff. Matilda's secretary was also on this level. And then you go down half a step for the butlers and assistant butlers. And then down another half step for the housemaids. Not everyone lived here. Some people drove in to come to work here, but there were several people who did reside here, and they had a bedroom on that floor. Any questions? No thoughts? Let's go on downstairs.
I work here all summer long. You don't know what hot is.
Well, how many hours?
How many hours a day? 8 at least.
Well,
It gets steamy up here.
This is how people would approach, drive up to the front, be dropped off at the front gate to come into the hall. Those little stone blocks over there were to bring a horse up. It's called a mounting block. You bring the horse up and you can step up there and hop on. When you leave today, I encourage you to look back at the front door and the grate. You'll see the coat of arms for Mr. Dodge and Mr. Wilson on the front door. Okay, let's go down the stairs. So this room is wonderful because it has air conditioning. It's my favorite room. This is the dining room. It's called the Christopher Wren Dining Room. It's modeled after Christopher Wren, the British architect's home in England. If you look up at the ceiling, it's an incredible piece of art carved by Mr. Corrado Carducci, an Italian immigrant. He created a mold and then carved the plaster and hung it in 4-foot sections by wire so that the ceiling would not crack as the weather changes. You can see the beautiful angels or cherubs called Hootie. And we have 2 doors on each side, very neoclassical style. The furniture was meant to give you an impressive vision of the neoclassical art style with the Bernlin Gibbons basswood carving around the mantel and the oil paintings. On this wall we have Matilda's portrait, Matilda in the red dress, wearing no jewelry. We actually have those shoes and the fabric upstairs in the archives. Portrait to the right is Alfred, looking like a country gentleman with a wolf-type dog, part of his family crest, and a little picture of Meadowbrook Hall to the left lower part of the painting. If you are coming here for dinner, this table, from chandelier to chandelier, can be extended to seat about 40 people. But you could fit close to 200 people in here if you're just having a social event. This is where the family would dine. They would dine in the little window bay area there for dinner if it was just the family. But for Christmas, they sat at this table, and each person had a ribbon coming from the centerpiece out to their place setting, and it was tied to a gift. Small gift like a watch, some jewelry, whatever. That was a family tradition. You do that at home, right?
Getting out Rolex.
So if you look at the ceiling, you look above the doors, and you look underneath the table, we have the same theme throughout. The fruit and the wood carving, it matches it all. It's all the very floral type decor. Most of the furniture was created in the Haydn shops in New York City. It was custom made for the house. Matilda wanted this to be an American castle made with American materials by American craftsmen. She didn't want to buy things in Europe and import them here room by room like a lot of Americans were doing. They would go to Europe and buy a whole room, furniture, the paneling, everything. She wanted this to be created here. So it took 3 years, but it's very impressive that all this got done. The rugs, the furniture, paintings that were hung here, the architecture itself in 3 years and $4 million to create it. I don't think we could do that today. To the back, I'm going to ask you to step into the small room back there. That's the breakfast room. That's where the children would dine until they learned the table manners. It's also where the whole family would take their breakfast at 7 a.m. before the children were driven to school. This breakfast room is done in the chinoiserie style. It's Chinese Oriental style. You have a Japanese woman in her kimono in the chandelier. You have the Oriental theme in the rear. And if you look in the case behind you, we have some rose medallion candlesticks and the porcelain gods of wealth and longevity in the case there, as well as some jade teapots and serving cups. The room is an octagon shape, and you might be hearing the echo in this room. This is where Danny Dodge held his wedding and reception. 6 people in attendance, so much smaller than Francis's wedding.
Yeah.
If you look out through those windows, you'll see the Pegasus Fountain. It is done by Mr. Albert Fairbanks, a University of Michigan professor, as well as the Golden Fleece statue in the left wall. This chinoiserie style was popular in the 1930s. It's painted and then lacquered. The walls are painted and then lacquered. Same with the furniture. Okay, any questions? Well, we're going to come on to Alfred's. What do you think? Have you seen any of the rooms you like yet? Anything you want to recreate in your own house?
Matilda's room. That's nice.
So this is Alfred's study, or again, you see his picture here on the wall. Alfred Wilson was a lumber baron, and this is the only room with imported wood. It's English burled oak. It was brought in plank boards, allowed to cure for a year before they carved these beautiful frieze panels that go around the room. It's the life story of Alfred Wilson, starting in the back corner with his, when he was a baby, there was a flood in his hometown of Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And then we have his childhood days. His father was a Presbyterian minister, so they did move a lot. You see the different cities, Evansville, Indiana, are all represented there. He was quite a prankster, and he got in trouble a lot. In this panel here, he fell overboard on a riverboat. He had to be rescued by a riverboat captain. Here, he's making fun of his professors in Wisconsin at Beloit College, where he went to school. on the side, you will see a picture of him unpacking a cello as he arrives at college. He was a musician, and he was also a lumber baron. We have the whole lumber industry represented on this wall. I want to point out on the door handle, we have a lumber saw on this side, and on the other side is a lumberjack, keeping with the theme of his room. Above the fireplace is the marriage of Alfred to Matilda. He's making fun of his height difference. He's much taller. And then the next panel to the left is the Freemason symbols, Masonic symbols. And the last panel in the back corner is the city of Detroit and transportation. We have an old radio in the back corner because the family used this room as a den as well. There was no TV at the time, so they would listen to programs like The Lone Ranger and such on the radio. They also played Clue and Monopoly and cards in this room. That's the snack pantry where you could make drinks and sandwiches. And the secret door, which comes up from the stairwell in the basement in the games room and up in the bedrooms. Here's the door handle, here's the outline of the door. It's not as visible on this floor because he also used this room for office, so it was private. And these two doors, when they're both closed, create an air pocket, which gives more privacy and silence in this room. Okay. Any questions on Alfred's study? We're going to go down the hallway now, but I want you to look as you go out. The first picture you see on the wall is two dogs. It's Spanish, I'm getting the name wrong. I can't remember the breed. Springer Spaniels. But the portrait was done by the portrait artist, Mr. Van Dyke, who was the portrait artist to King Charles I of England.
So I'm not sure if you could hear it, but that's a secret passage that goes from the lower level to his bedroom, so he could just hidden stairway.
This house feels like a game.
So this room is Matilda's office. She had her own office as well. And Matilda's office is a Waterford crystal chandelier. The paneling is flawless white pine, and she has a typewriter and adding machine built into the back. Matilda ran the operation of the farms and this hall from her morning room, this room. Matilda was the first female lieutenant governor of the state of Michigan. She was appointed in 1940 to fill a vacancy. She was also a 25-year member of the Salvation Army. She was a woman board chair for Fidelity Bank in Detroit. She remained active to the end of her life in Oakland University. Into the hall. You see Francis is dressed like the young lady, Danny in his country gentleman outfit. They each had buildings on the property. Knoll Cottage, for Frances, was where she had a 2/3 size house with working appliances, 6 rooms, allowed her to learn to manage a household, including her own checkbook. That's Knoll Cottage. If you were to go out over the front bridge and turn left, you would come to Knoll Cottage. And Danny's cabin is out there as well. Danny's cabin, recently restored, has a lot of hunting and engineering items in it. Danny loved to work with engineering plans like his father. He was also an avid airplane owner. He had a Sikorsky and a Lockheed airplane to his name by the time he was 16. You guys all have one too, right? So that's the picture done by Mr. Louis Betts, famous portrait artist of the children when they moved into the hall. This room behind us is the museum shop. Now, when the family lived here, it was not enclosed. It was like their patio to sit out and enjoy. I would encourage you to step in and look in the corners of that room at the architectural decoration. It was also done by Mr. Corrado Carducci, and it portrays the seasons and the sports that could be done in Michigan. Up at the ceiling, you'll see someone in snowshoes here. Go to the other side, and it's springtime, and flowers. All these decorative corbels were all done by Mr. Corrado Taguchi. Okay, you come on out. It's meant to impress you. You look up at the beautiful exposed wood beams. That's very Tudor revival. In the painting behind you of Frances on one of her favorite horses, Pendennis, and this little guy Robin, one of the Pekingese dogs from the property, was done by George Ford Morris, a favorite animal portrait artist. The painting didn't hang here during the time that Matilda and Alfred lived here. It was actually upstairs. Now we're going to go down to the basement level. We skipped that when we started. Only a few more rooms and we're almost done, okay? I want you to notice this beautiful linen fold paneling. The wood carver was able to make the paneling look like cloth. That's why it's called linen fold. And it's a testament to the skill of the woodworker that he can do this. As you go down the stairs, look to your right, you'll see several of the British homes that were used as models for the house. Going into the ballroom as a guest. There is a working fountain behind the Dodge family tree there. It's not left turned on, but it does work, and it has a British lion head in the center of it. I wanted to point out this display case because we have several of the trophies and calendars, pictures of the horses. Again, Frances Dodge started Dodge Stables here on the property with 80 horses. She was a very accomplished equestrian. We even have a book about her there. And Matilda also was an accomplished equestrian. Matilda raised those giant draft horses, Belgian draft horses, but Frances worked with the flat saddle Hackney gaited ponies and horses, and also with the racetrack. You see pictures of the trotters there. So the family loved animals, dogs and horses, and we even had a pet tortoise named Pete that was brought back from a family trip and kept in the bathroom, Matilda's bathroom, for a while. And then when he became too heavy to carry, Pete was donated to Belle Isle Zoo, and we found out Pete was a girl. Poor Pete. I'm going to take you in here because these are the vaults. This vault is where the whiskey, the old Saratoga whiskey, and the china plates are kept. To the right is where the furs were left in the vault, and to the left is a very secure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 peg vault door where the archives were for the family. Excuse me. Back in the time before home security, you really did need to lock your things, and so that's the vault room. And coming through here, you're into the ballroom. How many of you have been here for Meadowbrook Ball? Anything with the university? Yeah? Okay. I think coming up mid-December, there's also an Open University event here during the holiday walk. Because you guys know that you can come and take a tour for free at any time. So this ballroom is a two-story ballroom. You saw the windows on the main gallery floor. But looking at the stained glass, you'll see it represents all the arts of music, drama, dancing, reciting poetry, all the various representation of the arts. And in the mantle, we have a medieval court jester carved into the mantle, and Mr. Charlie Chaplin's black and white film fame on the right. Looking up, there is a movie screen that scrolls down. The family used this room to show home movies, and the projector is behind you in the paneling. This hall was built during the time when wealthy families wanted to be careful, and they liked to do their events at home to protect their children and keep their families secure. If you remember the Lindbergh family kidnapping, security became a bigger issue. Up in the rafters there you see these wolves that are actually called grotesques, not gargoyles, because there's no water coming out. If there's water flowing through it, it's a gargoyle. If no water, it's a grotesque. So those are wolves that represent Mr. Wilson's family crest. And the arched ceiling with the exposed wood is very much like a chapel, but it is a Tudor revival style as well. And these wonderful ships that are above the display cases are actually built from animal bones and string. They were done by prisoners. So, random fact there.
Frances had her 25th birthday.
And he did. Frances Dodge had a 25th birthday party here. She was dining in the dining room and she heard music. She came out, looked down through the windows and saw the Tommy Dorsey being set up this way. And their lead singer was ill, and Mr. Frank Sinatra shut up for the evening. That was a big deal. So a lot of special events took place here, not only fundraising for the war effort, but also the marriage of Francis, Danny, and Barbara. The family was very generous to the people in the community, and they tried to keep everyone they had employed during the Depression. That's why they moved back into the farmhouse, and also they required that deliveries made to the farm during the Depression and World War II were made by horse and cart, not cars, to conserve on the fuel. This hall was actually closed off, and there used to be a gigantic oil painting of the Duchess of Marlborough hanging there, but during the time the hall was closed off, there was a pipe that broke and there was some water damage. So because they weren't living here, they noticed right away after it was damaged. But we're in the process of, someone asked, but we're in the process of fixing all the original artwork. In the 1970s, when Michigan State was temporarily trying to run this hall as a convention center, a lot of the artwork was sold off because it was just too expensive to insure. So a lot of pieces were sold, but now we're put a replica in the hall exactly where the original artwork would have been hanging. That's the project we're doing now. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, there's one more room. Okay. Chandelier, and it will raise and lower to the table. Behind you is the secret door goes to that secret stairwell that we said goes up to Alfred's office and then up to the bedrooms on the third floor. And if you look up above, there's beautiful carvings in this room that represent all the games you could play in the room. And on the door handle, if somebody wants to swing the door closed there, on the outside of this door, you will see a billiards table on the door handle. You mind pulling it? There we go. So we got a billiards table there, and on the other one is a checkerboard, keeping with the decor, the theme of this room. So what do you think?
I think the man loves a man's cave. I think the guys are like, this is a perfect man cave.
It is. Sneak down here and play on it. This was where a telephone was installed. The family did have telephones in the hall, and there was a switchboard operator 24/7. So it's pretty impressive that the family decided